In a grimy, overcrowded prison on the outskirts of a small town, a notorious serial killer named Victor Hale sat in his cell. His reputation followed him like a shadow. He was responsible for the brutal deaths of at least 5 young women. Despite being imprisoned for over a decade, the chilling glint in his eyes hadn't dimmed. He was a master manipulator, often charming the guards and other inmates, all while meticulously plotting his escape. Every evening, the prison went through a monotonous routine. The clamor of cell doors slamming and the echoes of footfalls on the concrete were the lullabies for Victor's sleepless nights. But unlike his fellow inmates, he didn't let despair consume him. He dreamed of freedom. Victor spent hours observing the prison's layout, noting the guards' schedules, the blind spots in the security cameras, and the worn-out parts of the fence. He occasionally exchanged trivial blabber with fellow inmates, but all the while he gathered information that would help him. Days turned into weeks, and Victor sat quietly, biding his time. Spring brought a fleeting warmth, and with it, Victor's plans solidified. He befriended a new inmate, Marcus, who boasted of connections on the outside. Marcus had been sentenced for drug trafficking, but claimed to be well connected. Victor listened intently, carefully planting the seeds of just the right amount of trust. "Listen, Marcus," Victor said one night, his voice low and conspiratorial. "I have a plan that could take us both out of here, but I need someone on the outside." Intrigued, Marcus leaned in. "What do you need?" Victor outlined an escape that involved bribed guards, a distraction during the evening meal, and a hastily arranged getaway car. After drawing a detailed map in the sand of their secluded yard, they agreed. If they pulled it off, they would both be free. The fateful night arrived. Victor felt a surge of adrenaline as he watched the other inmates eat their meals in the mess hall. Under the pretense of a game night, Marcus initiated a raucous commotion. As chaos erupted, Victor stealthily slipped away from the fray. He dressed in a guard uniform, snatched from a laundry pile, and made his way towards the exit. Navigating through the shadows with the ease of someone who had rehearsed this moment in his mind for years, Victor reached the fence. With the guards distracted, he climbed over, heart racing. He could almost taste the freedom he had yearned for, but just as he landed on the other side, a guard spotted him, the shout echoing through the night. Victor sprinted, adrenaline fueling his legs as the guard raised the alarm. He had coordinated with Marcus for a getaway vehicle parked a few blocks away, but now he had to make it there without being caught. The sound of sirens filled the air, growing louder and more menacing. Victor ducked into the nearby alleyways, heart pounding against his ribcage as he navigated through the darkness. He could hear footsteps behind him, 2 guards and possibly more. They were closing in fast. He turned down a narrow passage and spotted a fire escape. Climbing up, Victor found himself on the rooftop of an old factory. Breathing heavily, he scanned the streets below. He could see the flashing lights, the chaos he had created. Desperation clawed at him, forcing him to keep moving. Just as he thought he had lost them, he heard a voice. It was Marcus, hiding in the shadows. "Over here," he hissed, beckoning Victor to a dilapidated old van. They jumped inside, hearts racing. With tires screeching, they sped away from the prison grounds. Victor was alive, free for the first time in years, but he felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. "What now?" Marcus asked, glancing nervously in the rearview mirror. Victor smirked, a chilling expression that sent shivers down Marcus's spine. "Now, we build a new life, but first, we settle some scores." The van rattled on the deserted road, heading towards the horizon as the first light of dawn crept into the sky. Days passed, and the media was in a frenzy over Victor's escape. The town was gripped with fear, but Victor and Marcus were already in a different territory, plotting their next move. Victor planned to eliminate any witnesses from his past, people who could tie him back to the women he had killed. As they settled into a small town, Victor became increasingly restless. The thrill of the chase had worn off, replaced with paranoia. He had escaped once, but the shadows of his past haunted him. Marcus had become a liability. He insisted on contacting friends from his drug days, making Victor uneasy. One night, Marcus returned to the rundown motel with a dangerous glint in his eyes. "I have a guy who can help us go off the grid for good," he announced. "Or lead the police straight to us," Victor shot back, his patience waning. That evening, tensions flared. Marcus thought he could use Victor's notoriety to become a player in the underground world. "We can make a fortune," Marcus exclaimed, oblivious to the danger lurking in every corner. But Victor, having tasted freedom, knew he could not return to the confines of the past. In a fit of rage, he confronted Marcus. A struggle ensued, and in a moment of blinding clarity, Victor put an end to Marcus's plans, just like he had with the others. With Marcus gone, Victor went into hiding once more, moving from town to town, living in the shadows. But the fear of being found gnawed at him. Each siren in the distance sent shivers down his spine. Each pair of headlights felt like they were closing in on him. Yet, Victor had one last thing to do. He returned to the town where it all began, the place he had made his mark. Under the cover of darkness, he scouted the area, looking for familiar faces, those who had escaped his wrath before he was caught. But he was no longer the fearless predator he once was. Each encounter filled him with dread, for he knew that the walls of his past were beginning to close in once more. Eventually, the police caught up with him. It wasn't a manhunt, but rather the whispers of the town's folks that led them there. A tip-off, born out of fear and anger, saw Victor captured once more. Returned to his cell, Victor sat in silence, staring at the walls that felt more like a cage than ever before. He had evaded capture for a while, but freedom had come at a cost. The world outside continued without him, and he was just a shadow of the monster he had once been. As he gazed through the bars, he realized that no amount of planning or plotting could save him from the haunting echoes of his own past. The walls weren't just brick and mortar. They were the remnants of his psyche, forever enclosing him in the darkness he had created. And so Victor Hale waited, plotting his next move in a game where he had already lost everything.